They both should roll D20, see who goes first.
I think that's fair. So you and Arch are each going to roll a d20, and whoever gets
Arch,
higher
13.
will go on their weapon quest next. 13. All right, so it looks like it's going to be Velnos. All right, so Velnos. So basically, this is probably. I'm gonna say this is a couple days later. You guys have ridden back to camp, and this is another thing you're getting from Lorna. And Lorna basically comes up to you and says that she has something that may interest you specifically, since you're a pure-blooded elf. And that is that apparently you have kin in the area, and it's just been recently discovered that this small village exists. And apparently these are a small group of descendants from whatever happened to the Elven Forest 1,000 years prior. What she says is that it's a small village comprised of a lot of elven mages and druids. It appears that the people who found it has some sort of a magical barrier around it, which is why people haven't found it for a very long time. It's like a very secluded village. It's in the Wildlands, which is to the northwest of where the oasis is, and it's basically the only jungle area on the southern continent. A lot of large creatures and life forms and stuff live there, but they're kind of nestled inside the jungle, and she was able to get a location for you, but she also would like to come with you since she is a half-elf.
I mean, sure.
So she marks this location on your map. It's a few days trek into the jungle, so you guys can get started and go in on that. So all you guys leave on horseback. Lorna and Drelark are leading the pack, and you guys go into the jungle. Now, after a few days of travel, you guys come to the location where the village should be. However, all you see in front of you is a grove. It doesn't look like there's anything there. It's just an open field. It's a very large open field, but it's just an open field. Lorna is also confused by this. She's thinking that maybe the person who marked it on her map might have marked the wrong spot.
Gonna cast Detect Magic.
Yes, you do detect magic.
It's likely magically hidden. Does anybody have a Dispel?
You can also see what you're dealing with in terms of magic. You just know that magic is in the area and has been cast. You don't know necessarily what kind of magic or what it is.
I'm going to slowly poke the rapier into the grove, see if anything changes.
You walk up to the area where the grove is with your rapier drawn, and you just start poking it in front of you as you keep taking steps. Eventually, you hit something solid. It feels kind of like wood. After a second, though, space in front of you that looks like a grove, a hole opens up, and it looks like it's opening up in the outside of a tree or like a bark wall. And there's actually a hole that you can see through. Through the hole, you see what appears to be an elven village.
Well, guess your contact was correct after all.
It must be because of your blood.
Don't mind if I do.
All right, you step through the hole, and you see that it appears to be a traditional elven village. The homes all appear to be made out of natural rooted materials that have been magically grown from the ground. There are several small farm fields, and it looks like there's just kind of it's a general small little hamlet. It looks like a peaceful little town. There is a large tree that is growing in the center of the town. So you step through, and so does everybody else behind you. So are you going to proceed towards the town?
Yeah, I'm gonna try and find what looks like a town square.
As you get closer to the town, an elf that appears to be wearing very kind of bulky, tree-like looking armor. It looks like the armor is almost made out, it's druid armor basically. It looks like it's made out of tree limbs and bark and stuff like that, but it's all natural grown stuff. And he also appears to have what looks like a sword made out of hardened bone or something like that on his waist. He steps in front of you and looks you over. He specifically looks at Drelark and Lorna and remarks, "A pure blood and a half-breed. You two may continue. The rest, however, must wait on the outskirts of town. We do not welcome non-blooded visitors."
And why is that? If by your logic, you would have to keep the half-breed behind as well.
Sometimes we have to make exceptions. The others will have to probably stay behind on the outskirts of town, while the other two will be allowed through to some extent. However, most of the talking will be done to Velnos.
I get the distrust of the human bone tickler, but the rest of my group is another sort of elf and woodland creatures. Or you don't consider frogs woodland creatures.
Normally I'd take offense to bone tickler, but you have a point.
So roll a diplomacy check. I'm going to have him roll against that, just a straight wisdom roll to see if he resists that at all. Okay, he does not. So yes, you're able to convince him that the two frogs are woodland creatures, so they may accompany you. However, the weird-looking human would probably have to stay on the outskirts of town. She also smells funny.
Now listen, I know the human looks strange, but I can see on your belt that you have a bone-looking sword. The human likes, I would say, touching bones, but it's a bit more complex than that. I would prefer that she would be around just in the case. It could also be interesting for you to study.
Well, all right. There's no point in leaving just one of you on the edge of town. God, this is annoying. This is why we don't have visitors. All right, follow me. First of all, Pureblood, why are you here, and how did you find us?
I essentially heard a rumor that there might be a pure blood elf village or habitation around, but I didn't really expect all the trees.
We've lived here for many years since the Great Forest died after the World Tree burned to the ground. We moved our people here, and we've been living in this secluded area ever since. The druids keep the bark wall up, and the mages keep the illusionary magic going so nobody sees us, and since very few people venture into the Wildlands to begin with, we really never had a problem. The only reason the outer gates even opened was because you're a pureblood. If you weren't, it would have stayed closed.
I just started, poking my sword.
It's proximity-based. Like a supermarket.
Still.
That explains why you found them, but what exactly do you need them for is the question.
I'm gonna just gently tap Lorna on the shoulder and ask her to remind him why we're here.
Tap Lorna on the shoulder. She looks over at the elven warrior, who also, by the way, identifies himself as Haldir. She explains to him that basically what's happened across the continent is the Black Scale Dragonborn have taken over the Continental Castle, or what used to be known as the Fire Sand Palace, which is now the Black Scale Palace. Their leader Thresh has successfully toppled every major kingdom, including the one that you were formerly a part of, the Nexus. Now they're looking to get everything back in order, get the princess across the border, and hopefully try and topple their evil regime, and they need help. They need a lot of help. So if they could lend anything to that aid, then they would be most grateful. Now, Haldir thinks over this offer for a minute and looks over to you, Drelark, and basically says that he is going to be willing to help, but the problem is that they are only willing to help other pure-blooded elves that understand their culture, and the only way to understand is for Drelark to be judged by the elders. And the only way to do that is to go to the tree at the center of town.
How do I explain to the elders if it isn't, an offense that I wasn't raised as
He says that it is not about where you were raised, it is about whether you are worthy.
Try, but my prowess relies on more martial abilities.
He says that they will judge you as worthy, and it will not be in words. He says that you need to come with him to understand.
Oh, sign me in then. If it's not words, it's probably fisticuffs.
He leads you and the others to the center of town, where there is a rather large tree that is growing in the center of town. You can tell that the tree emanates a form of elven magic, maybe similar to the world tree that used to be in the forest.
PTSD.
He says to press your hand to the bark of the trunk of the tree and close your eyes and concentrate. The elders will speak to you, and they will decide whether or not you are worthy.
Yeah, why not?
You walk up and you press your hand to the tree. As you do so, you feel your spirit exit your body in an instant, and you are transported somewhere that you are not familiar with. You land on the ground. The ground is dirt. You look around you and you see what appears to be lush forest and a massive tree that stretches up into the clouds.
Oh, no.
There are hundreds of elves around you, walking around and going about their business. However, you do notice that your body itself appears to be incorporeal. It appears that you are taking the form of something similar to a spirit.
I'm gonna just look around, try and get my bearings on what the hell is going on.
If you want to try and understand what has happened to you, I want you to roll a wisdom check. If you are trying to just discern things from your environment, you will roll a spot check.
Spot.
That was a spot check. All right, so you just see crowds of elves. You don't see anything else that stands out to you. If you want to roll a wisdom check to try and understand what you're doing, you also don't understand why you're there, but you can walk around and explore. Now, the thing is that you do notice that you can hear and see the people around you. However, it does appear that they can't do the same to you. There are people that walk directly through your form as if you're not there.
What kind of sorcery is this shit?
So as you're kind of wandering around in the area, you do hear what sounds like a voice behind you. Oh, another one, eh?
What do you mean another one? Also, who the fuck is talking?
You turn around and you see what appears to be an elven warrior. He's wearing a suit of armor, but he also appears to be incorporeal, similar to you, like a spirit.
You look like someone from my trade. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I'm not the brightest individual. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. Can you explain to me what's going on?
If you look around you, all you'll see is this was the elven world at the peak of its brilliance. The world tree stretching up into the stars. People around you, elven society, thousands of individuals in one tiny little place in this city, and spread throughout the massive elven forest, stretching from the northern kingdoms of Calgar and the Empire all the way to the Firesand Wastes to the south. This was the peak of elven society. If you are to truly understand how our culture was, to glimpse it at its greatest height is part of that understanding. Now, I am here as a guiding spirit to you, because for some reason they thought I was the smartest asshole, and when I died, they transported me here. So now, would you please follow me inside the massive tree, and we can get this tour over with?
Alright, straight to the point. I like that. Let's go.
Alright, so you walk inside the world tree. As you go inside the center of it, you notice that it appears to be somewhat hollow. There is areas that are kind of like, there are pockets on the inside that have been kind of moved out magically, like, you know, the vegetation has been spread out so that there are pathways and stairways. There's a large table in the middle where it appears that a lot of elven scholars are studying, developing technologies. You see a few people that look to be practicing something involving medical stuff, involving elven magic, creams and salves that are developed from the world tree. And he points out and says, we were just starting to discover at the time how the healing properties of the world tree would react to certain magics and alchemies. We were on the verge of discovering abilities to cure long-term diseases, fix cripples, cure various types of cancers and poisons once thought to be deadly. He then leads you over to a staircase that leads upstairs to further see some other things that the elves also had that were developing at the time to show what the peak of their actual civilization was. He beckons you to go upstairs with him.
Yeah, I'm just following.
As you go upstairs, you also find great libraries filled with tablets and various books that are with shelves that are grown from the world tree. And then at the next floor, after you go past that library, you find that it appears there are a lot of classrooms where children are being taught about the history of the elven people. The elven guide that is with you, the guide ghost, who identifies himself as Edital, then turns to you and says, as these were the young that were being trained to be our next in line. You just walked through our great library where all of our thinkers gathered our greatest supplies of information on the world. And now, because you have seen the greatest heights of our civilization, you will now see the fall.
To follow the fucking
As he says that, you hear what sounds like a right before a fiery explosion wipes everybody out of the room, blowing a hole in the wall and vaporizing the teacher and all the elven children in an instant. This is also followed by a large explosion. Now, neither of you are harmed in this because you're incorporeal, therefore nothing in the physical environment can actually affect you. You just get to watch all these people fucking die. Also, roll a spot check, by the way.
I already did.
Alright, that's enough. You see what appears to be a flying ship in the sky, and a fireball erupts from the side every once in a while, along with an explosion around the world tree.
I will not sit by and make you think what I did was wrong.
You see a lot of other explosions happen around the world tree over the course of the next few minutes. Edital leads you through more hallways as the world tree begins to catch fire and collapse in on itself. You see many elves that are on fire. So you see all of these horrors of just elves burning to death and the entire world tree just getting annihilated. Now, Edital leads you to a final chamber. In that chamber sits what looks like a green crystal pendant on a necklace made out of vines. And he points to it and says, in order to truly be judged by the elders, you must go and grasp that crystal. Even though you can touch no other thing in this world, you will be able to touch that.
Whoever destroyed your tree is mighty powerful. I have never seen a machine like that in my entire life.
Neither did we until the day everyone died.
Horrible and powerful creatures indeed.
So are you going to go up and touch the crystal?
Yeah, I'm gonna touch the fucking crystal.
You walk up and you grab the crystal. As you grab it, the crystal appears to magically bond to you. Not physically. It's not like grafted to your hand or anything like that, but it appears to have magically bonded to your essence as an elf, meaning that the crystal has dubbed you worthy to be its wielder as a warrior. And now that you have seen both the pinnacle of the elven species as well as its sudden and eventual downfall, so Velnos, the green crystal is able to bond to you because you now have an understanding of, like I said, what the elven society was and what eventually became of it. But the crystal bonds to you in a sense where now it is wrapped around your neck, not like choking you or anything like that. It's wrapped around your neck like a pendant. And the crystal then lets out what looks like a very powerful form of natural armor that covers your entire body. You're basically a walking tree tank. And at this moment, Edital then takes out a massive two-handed sword and says that your final test is to defeat him in combat or remain there and be the new guiding spirit to any other idiot that decides to get transported back there. He's going to take your body.
Nah, not gonna happen. I'm gonna attack him without.
Okay, Edital swings up his sword. He's going to come down on you with it quickly because right now you don't have your rapier out. It's kind of under the armor a little bit. I'm going to give you a chance to do a reflex save.
Damn it.
As he brings his sword down, you put your arm up, and instinctively, the bark on your arm forms into a shield that blocks his blow. And he then proceeds to back off. You then realize that the armor reacts to you mentally and can actually form any weapon you choose. This would also include ranged weapons such as crossbows or bows. However, not firearms. You can't turn yourself into a gun. The armor itself also acts like full plate.
I'm gonna hit him with a penetrator. The dildo bat from things. I'm gonna smack him in the face with it.
Alright, I'm just gonna call that a club. So you basically just form a giant phallic-looking wooden club, and then you proceed to smack him with it, but we're gonna roll initiative because now you guys are actually fighting. And okay, so you're gonna go first. Okay, and you're using the phallic club. Okay, so that's going to connect. Again, it's basically like a hardened wooden phallic-looking club. So I'm going to say, as far as stats goes, that's 1d6 plus 3. 9. Okay, so you give him a mighty smack, and you smack him right in the side, and you crack a lot of that bark armor that he's wearing. So the armor there is pretty weak, and you may have broken a couple of ribs underneath, so he took a decent amount of damage there. But he's still very much able to fight, so he's going to roll to attack. And with his attack bonus is a +5, so that's going to hit. So he's rolling that greatsword. So that greatsword is going to be 2d8 plus 2.
Can I try to dodge, though?
So that's a +2 to that, so that's 8 damage to you. So it is now your turn. So you can change your weapons at will, by the way. So if you wanted to do a different weapon this turn than you did last turn, your armor will automatically adapt to that.
I'm gonna switch to a whip.
Okay, so you're just gonna whip the fuck out of him? Alright, so that's gonna crit. So I'm gonna say a whip is gonna be around the same as the club, so I'll say 1d6 plus 3 again. Alright, that's gonna be 12 damage. So yeah, you whip him again, and you whip him around the leg area, so you got his legs and his knees really bad. He's not really gonna be able to move around a whole lot. His mobility has been kind of not sustained very well because of that. So he's hurting a bit, but he is still, again, able to attack. Alright, so he rolled a nat 1. So basically what happens is he swings with his two-handed sword, and he misses you and actually hits the pedestal that was underneath where the crystal was, and the sword is now embedded in the pedestal. So he's going to have to roll a strength roll next turn to try and yank the sword out of there. If not, the sword will stay stuck in the pedestal. So you're going to get an attack of opportunity at this point. So it's your turn, but you're going to get a +2 in addition to your normal pluses when you attack him. Are you going to again use the whip, or are you going to use something else?
I'm gonna change to punch him in the face with brass knuckle.
Alright, so you're gonna build up your fist into like a gauntlet type thing? Okay, because you're putting a lot of weight into that, and because that's gonna be an attack of opportunity, I'm gonna say that if it hits, it's going to crit, and the damage for that is gonna be 2d4 plus 3.
Come on.
Oh, you rolled a nat 1. Okay. Instead, you whiffed by him and you fell on the ground behind him. So you put everything into your punch and he just ducked right out of the way and you flew right over him and went ass over tea kettle onto the floor. So now he's going to have to roll a strength roll to get that sword out of there.
Yes,
All right.
yes,
And
yes.
his strength is going to be a +2. That's an 11. So I'm going to say that he's able to dislodge it. But because he didn't roll that high, I'm going to say it takes his turn to dislodge it. So Velnos, you're going to get another chance to attack him. But his next turn, he will have his sword ready to go.
In the face.
That's an 11. That's going to miss. Okay, he missed again. So you're able to squeeze out of the way of his sword yet again. Oh,
face.
okay, that is
In
going
the
to hit.
face.
You're aiming for the face?
I'm aiming for the face.
All right, then that's a targeted attack, so that's going to crit. So that's 14 damage to his face. So you take your wood-reinforced weighted gauntlet and you cold clock him across the face with it. It's enough to shatter the front of his helmet, break his nose, and cause him to bleed a lot everywhere. His helmet cracks in two and falls off, and you see underneath it, he appears to have long, flowing blonde hair and long elf ears, like a normal, pure-blooded elf, similar to you. He's not doing too great, but he's still able to fight. All right, 16, and that's with his attack bonus. So that will hit you. So that is going to be 13 damage, because that's a +2 to that as well. So you take 13 damage from his two-handed sword, so you can try again and go at him. Are you going to keep using the fist, or are you going to use something else?
Can I switch to a rapier and wait for his next attack and try to parry?
So I'll allow you to do a reflex save on his next turn if you're going to prepare for it like that. So you change your weapon from the fist, the wood kind of falls away from your fist as it returns to a normal sort of natural bark gauntlet, and it then forms itself into a long, skinny sword very similar to a rapier, what you were mentally thinking of, basically. That's how the armor reacts. You now have that sword. By the way, that sword does 2d6 +3. So now what's happening is that he is going to try and attack you, but you are going to be able to do a reflex save. So I'm going to roll for him. All right, so he rolled a 9, so he's going to miss anyway. So the reflex save is more... Ooh. All right, so he attacks and misses. At the same time, when you try and grab him, you just sort of whiff and fly right by him, and you guys basically just switch places on the battlefield. You kind of just went, whoop, and now you're on opposite sides. Oh.
I'm not gonna bother.
You can try and roll a reflex save.
You didn't roll a
Negative. 18, you're down to 1 HP. So you're down to 1 HP, so you're still gonna be able to attack because you're incorporeal, so it's nothing's gonna happen until you go down below 0. And he's close. He's relatively close. You've already done 30-something damage to him. He has similar health to you.
Maximum protection to the shin. I'm going for the balls.
You
Yep.
transform your shoe into a much larger and much heavier weighted boot. You can now kick him in the groin. It's going to count as bashing damage.
Oh my.
All right, you gotta do the Charlie Brown thing, and you sort of like miss him, but you don't like fall over like Charlie Brown does. So let's see if he can do this. Ooh. Okay, I'm gonna give you a chance to do a reflex save to try and save this one. You just have to beat the base score.
Yo.
Okay, you beat his base score, which means you are able to successfully dodge that attack, if not barely.
Oh.
You hit the 20! You hit the 20!
It
All
did
right,
it
so
before.
you rolled a 20. Are you going to try and Rochambeau him in the balls again?
Yeah, it's right in the balls. A bigger boot in the balls.
Okay, that's
So it's
also
not
that's
double.
going to crit twice because you hit a nat 20 and you're aiming at his groin. So
Okay, so
the
we-
damage for the boot, I'm going to say, because you're putting that much force into it, is going to be 2d6 +3. Multiply that by 2 and then by 2 again.
Oh lord.
12,
So
so
that'd
that
be
multiplied by
24.
2, that's going to be 24. Multiply 2 again is going to be
It's
48. So this is what happens. Velnos, after a long and arduous battle, you wind up your foot and you give the almightiest groin kick to ever make contact with a ball sack. It then proceeds to explode the ghost of the elf, which, by the way, you didn't even really know was technically possible. You exploded his body so that all he is now is a set of 2 legs standing independently, and the rest is just splattered in ghost bits all over the burning room. And the 2 legs that are now freestanding fall to either side and collapse on the ground. After that, there's a few seconds that pass while you watch as the room is slowly engulfed in flames, and what remains of the brilliant embroidery on the wall from the elven civilization is burned away into ash. As you watch this, You close your eyes for a second and you are returned to your body back at the tree. Haldir is standing behind you and simply says that it appears you have passed the test. Once you look down, you see that there is the green pendant that is around your neck, similar to how it was in your dream.
Do I still have the big ass boog?
No, the armor is not currently formed around you. It forms out of the pendant, so if you're not using it, you can put it right back in instantaneously. Haldir looks at you and sees that you now have the pendant around your neck. He also sees that it appears that you have come back from your little spirit journey. He states that because you have passed the test and because it appears you've been approved by the elders, he's willing to offer his and his strongest warriors services to your war cause, which means that you're going to get a bit of a boost in your troops, and if you need to call upon them in order to do any kind of big assaults or anything later on, they are willing to help you. However, they are going to stay in the village for its own protection currently, unless you send for them.
Alright, cool.
Velnos, you've gotten your thing, and the elves also bid you goodbye, and they thank you for showing up. They're happy that there's another one of their brethren that's around.